Games Workshop, where is all our Necron terrain? Time for a Necron Natter. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, time for another Necron Natter, and in this one we're going to have a talk about Necron terrain. So this is just a chilled out, relaxed chit chat. I have my cup of coffee here in my Without a Clue WarGaming mug, so go and check out Without a Clue WarGaming's YouTube channel. The link is in the description below, and yeah, let's have a chat about Necron terrain. So in the opening clip there, you saw that I said, where is our terrain, GW? And to be fair, this isn't a video rant about Games Workshop not making Xenos terrain. They do make some. I mean, we've got some Tau, and we've got some Aldar, which has just been released. So maybe they are going down that route. Personally, I think they've missed a huge trick, a big gap in the market. But that's their business. They can do what they want, and they do make some great terrain pieces. I think a lot of the Imperial stuff is really good, and obviously it's more generic, and it probably sells more than, say, a Necron one would. But from my point of view, I have a huge amount of Necron terrain. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the facilities in my editing software to do this and put a picture of terrain up. Which is something actually I want to get improve on my channel as well. I'm going to be aiming for to get some new editing software, but at the moment I can't do that. So what I'm going to do is, after the video at the end, is I'm going to put some pictures up of all my Necron terrain. Well, not all of it, some of my Necron terrain, so you can see it. If you haven't seen any of my battle reports before, maybe you haven't seen my terrain and you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. So yeah, at the end of the video there'll be pictures of my terrain. So yeah, I started Necrons, as you know, a long time ago, using this codex, my most favourite codex ever. And in the back of this codex is, let me just show you, if I can find it, here we go, a Necron Tomb World terrain generator. Now this is really awesome, and this is what I based my terrain on at the beginning. So the idea is that you roll a dice to see which piece of terrain you get. So on a 2 you get a sandstorm, which is not actually any terrain at all. It's some special rules. At the beginning of the turn you roll a 6, and if you get a 6 then something happens during the game. Then there's the Necron Abyss, which I built, Obelisks, which I've built, a Mesa, which I've built, Rocky Ground, which I've built most of it. A ruined tomb structure, a tomb entrance, and a large tomb structure. Built all 3 of those. A dried riverbed, which I built that as well. You saw that in the Scragguard battle report. Power conduits. I didn't really build that, but in my terrain square competition a few years ago, I think it was last year actually, I did the Necron Power Station, which was inspired by that piece of terrain. And then an Adaptus Mechanicus research post, apparently. I didn't want that for my terrain. So that's where I got inspired, and not only that, but the pictures in here, which are really, really awesome and incredibly inspiring, and when I find it, you'll recognise some of it. Here we go, it's coming up. Right, here we go. I'll show you that. Recognise that Necron tomb? Yeah, that's exactly what I based my big tomb on. I tried to copy it as much as I could. In hindsight, I wish I'd made it a bit smaller because it's a bit more playable. But then on the other side of the coin, when I do get it out, it is pretty awesome to see on the table. I made this in the days that you could buy sprues separately. So I ordered 2 monolith sprues just to get those sections there, and the board in the middle I used a marble, and the rest is just made from foam board. And making terrain I think is incredibly fun, and I've had a lot of fun making terrain. I think it's an awesome side of the hobby, and that's why I like to do the terrain square competition, because I like to encourage that for others, because I know there's quite a few people have never made a piece of terrain, but once you get going, you know, terrain is just so much fun. It's incredibly creative, probably the most creative side of the hobby there is. Yeah, I love it. So, yeah, I made some terrain, mainly from polystyrene and from foam board, etc. And then I have a good selection of terrain which I got from a company from South Africa, Lasercut Card. Now, I have a whole playlist of Lasercut Card material in the archives, and I'll try and link that in the description as well for you. But yeah, I've got the big grand obelisk, I've got the little tower, I've got the little small obelisks, 6 of those. There's a Necron bastion. Some really cool terrain, matches my board really well, and I really like it. So yeah, if you need some Necron terrain, that's another option. Again, link in the description below. I believe TT Combat makes some Necron terrain as well, because I've had a couple of those bits. I don't believe they make it, I know they make it. So I've had like an obelisk and also a pylon, which is pretty cool. So there's a few options around, as well as obviously scratch building. So yeah. Now, the other thing about making terrain yourself is you come up with special rules for it, which is another great part of making terrain. Like for one of my pieces, I've got this, it's actually a Games Workshop piece actually, but I've still made up my own rules for it. So yeah, I've got like a lava section in the middle, and then that gives you a slightly better save if you're standing in the lava section, but then if you move through it on a 1, you have to take a dangerous terrain test. And the Necron Abyss, which actually comes from here, that you have to get the rules from here. If you walk over the abyss and you're roll a 1, you just die, just fall into the abyss and die. It's pretty good having rules. The only thing I would say about having rules for terrain is don't make them too wacky, because no one will use them. So keep it simplified. You don't want to have it too dangerous, because no one will go on it if it's too dangerous, and you don't want it too complicated, because again people won't use it either. But yeah, it's pretty cool having your own special rules for pieces of terrain as well. The other thing I want to just touch on about terrain is storage. Storage can be a bit of a problem. I know Kiblams, on his channel, he makes everything, all of his terrain, flat packed. It all comes apart with magnets or special styrene fittings, and everything just comes apart and it just goes flat, and he just puts it on his shelf. And he's got like a whole Frostgrave table, which just flat packs into like a little pile like that. It's a good option. I think Necron terrain is going to be tough to flat pack like that. Some of them probably not. But obviously you've got to have the skill for that. Now Kiblams has a lot of skill with styrene, with plasticard. Yeah, I mean, something to consider as well is storage of your terrain. I've got most of mine in boxes, which is fine. As long as you've got the time to get your terrain out and pack it away. Yeah, that's the other thing to bear in mind when you're doing terrain, is storing the piece. Now I've just made that Necron Prometheus pool. That's a big piece of terrain, so I'm going to store that on top of a wardrobe. Obviously I'll put it in a bag because I don't want dust getting on it. Yeah, there's something to consider when you sit down and you plan to make your piece of terrain. It's like, okay, well, where am I going to store it? Yeah. So, Necron terrain. Do you think Games Workshop should be making it? If they made it, would you buy it? Yeah, let's have your comments and thoughts in the box below. In the meantime, here are some images of some of my Necron terrain. Thanks for watching.